welcome back to the channel. This is BJ Tutor, and in this video let us try to understand what is an equation. Okay, so students, let us try to recall the mastic pattern that we have learned in the last video. So here a L shape is formed using how many mastics? 2 mastics. So to form one L shape we need how many mastics? 2 mastics. And here 2 L shape is formed. And to form 2 L shape, how many mastics are required? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? We have already learned this. And to form 3 L shape, the number of mastics required will be 6. So the rule to find the number of mastics required, number of mastics required will become 2n, and we already know that n is a variable and it denotes the number of L's formed, right? So students, the number of mastics required for the L shape is given by twice n, right? And this n, the variable n, denotes the number of L's formed, right? So we have studied this in the last video. Now the question that I want to ask to all of you is that what if the number of mastics required is given, and what if we are asked to find the number of L's formed? Say for example, let's try an example. So for example, what if the number of mastics is given? Let's say the number of mastics required, let's say, is given as 10. And what if we are asked to find number of L's formed? What if we are asked to find number of L's formed? Right? So we already know that the rule to find the number of mastics required is given by twice n, right? And here in the question they have given the number of mastics required as 10. So twice n equals to 10. So this twice n is equals to 10 is an example of an equation. It's just an example of an equation. So an equation is just a mathematical statement that proves that the two things are equal, which means that the value on this side, which will be called left hand side, and the value on this right side, which is called right hand side, will be equal. Understood? So I'll repeat again. An equation is just a mathematical statement that proves that the two things are equal, and the two things are the value on the left hand side and the value on the right hand side are equal or will be equal. Understood? Next, students, there are few points that we need to know in an equation. So the first point says that an equation has an equal sign between its two sides. So in every equation there is an equal sign between the two sides. And next point says that the value on the left hand side, which we can call it in shortened form as L height S, is equal to the value on the right hand side, or simply we can say R height S. So point number 2 says that the value on the left hand side will always be equal to the value on the right hand side. Understood? So let's give some example of an equation. So students, here twice n is equal to 10 is just an example of an equation. Why do we call this an equation? Because first of all, it has an equal sign between the two sides, right? And the two sides are the sides on the left side, which we call left hand side, is equal to the side on this right side, which we call right hand side. So twice n is equal to 2 is just an example of an equation. Understood? So what if the two sides are not equal. So for example, let's say the statement, let's say twice n is greater than 10. Twice n is greater than 10. Is this an example of an equation? Is this an equation? Twice n is greater than 10. Is this an equation? Yes or no? No, this is not an equation. Why? Because the two sides are not equal. Here it says that the value on the left hand side, that is twice n, is greater than the value on the right hand side, that is 10. So twice n greater than 10 is not an equation. Then let us try another one. What about if I say twice n is less than 5? Twice n is less than 5. Is this an equation? Yes or no? Is this twice n less than 5 an equation? No, this is not an equation. Why? Because it says that the value on the right hand side, that is 5, is greater than the value on the left hand side, that is twice n. That means your value on the left hand side is not equal to the value on the right hand side. So twice n less than 5 is not an equation. To be an equation, we must always remember that the value on the left hand side must always be equal to the value on the right hand side. Understood, student? So student, next let us try some example. What if I give you 8 minus 3 is equal to 5? And what if I ask you whether 8 minus 3 equals to 5 is an equation or not? Understood? So let's find out. So to be an equation, we know that the first rule is that there must be an equal sign between the two sides. So here we have an equal sign. And the next rule is that the value on the left side, which we call the left hand side, must be equal to the value on the right side, which we call right hand side. So that means in short we can say that left hand side must be equal to right hand side. So the value on the left hand side is given to be 8 minus 3. So left hand side, the value on the left hand side is given to be 8 minus 3. So what is 8 minus 3? 5, right? And the value on the right side or right hand side is given to be 5. So left hand side, the value of left hand side is 5, and the value on the right hand side is also 5. So that means that left hand side is equal to right hand side. So 8 minus 3 equals to 5 is an, yes, it is an equation. It is an equation. But here, do we see any variable here? Do we see any variable a, b, c or x, y, z here in this equation? No, there is no variable. So such equation in which there is no variable involved, we call them numerical equation. We have a special name for them and we call them numerical equation. Understood? So a numerical equation is just an equation without any variable. Understood? So students, when we say equation, when we talk about equation in mathematics, we mean those equations that involves a variable, like twice n equals to 10 or x minus 3 equals to 11. Understood? All these equations involves variable, right? The first equation, the variable involved is n, and in the second equation, the variable involved is x. So whenever we say an equation in mathematics, we really mean those equations with a variable. Understood? Not those numerical equations like 8 minus 3 equals to 5. Yes, 8 minus 3 equals to 5 is also an example of equation, right? But it is a numerical equation. It is just an example of a numerical equation. Why do we call them numerical equation? Because there is no variable involved. So in mathematics, whenever we say equation, we really mean those equations which involves a variable. Understood? Next, students, let us try to solve some question. So the question says, state which of the following are equations with variable. Understood? So it means that in the question they will be giving us some equations, and among those equations we are going to find the equations that involves variable. Understood? Those equations that involve variable. So let's read the first question. It says, so let's look at the first question. It says x plus 20 equals to 70. So here we can see the variable involved. The variable involved in this equation is x, right? So is this an equation with a variable? Yes. Why? Because in this equation we have a variable and the variable is x. So this is equation with variable. So the answer will be yes. And the variable involved is x. What about next question? It says 8 into 3 is equals to 24. We all know that 8 times of 3 is equal to 24, right? So this is an equation. But is this an equation with a variable? Do we see any variable here? Is 8 a variable? No. Is 3 a variable? No. Again, is 24 a variable? No. So this is not an equation with a variable. This is not an equation with a variable. And what is this equation? Yes, it is simply just a numerical equation. Numerical equation. Not an equation with a variable. Understood? Next, let's try another question. Next, students, let us try question number C. And it says twice p is greater than 30. So we already know that it is not an equation, right? So why is this not an equation? Because it clearly says that twice p is greater than 30, which means that the value on the left hand side and the value on the right hand side are not equal. So this is not an equation, right? No, this is not an equation. This is not an equation. And what about our next question? It says n minus 4 is equals to 100. So is this an equation with a variable? Yes. Why? Because the variable involved in this equation is n. So yes. And the variable involved is n. Understood? Let's try another question. Next, then we have 20b is equals to 80. So we already know that it is an equation. And is this an equation with a variable? Yes. And the variable involved in this equation is b, right? So 20b is equals to 80 is an equation with a variable. And the variable involved is b. Next, we have y by 8 is less than 50. So since there is no equal to sign, it means that the value on the left hand side and the value on the right hand side are not equal. So this is not an equation. So no, this is not an equation. Understood, student? Let's try another question. Next, students, our next question is fill in the blank. It means that in the question they will be giving us a lot of equations, and in our answer will be to find the variable involved in that equation. Understood? So first of all, let's look at the first question. So the first equation is x plus 10 is equals to 30, and they have written variable and they have given us a blank, which means that we are going to find the variable involved in this equation. So it's very simple, right? So the variable involved in the equation x plus 10 equals to 30 is, yes, x. The variable involved is x. Next, we have another equation. It says p minus 3 is equals to 7. So what is the variable involved in this equation? Yes, the variable involved in this equation is none other than p. Very good. Next, we have another equation. It says 3n, or we can simply read it as thrice n, is equals to 21. So what is the variable involved here? The variable involved in this equation is n. Next, we have t by 5 equals to 4. So the variable involved in this equation will be, yes, t. And last one we have twice m minus 3 equals to 5. So the variable involved in this equation is m. Very good. Understood? So this is how we are going to find the variable involved in the given equation. So that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all in the next video.